Close your eyes. Think back to when you were in elementary school. The cubbies for your backpacks, the smell of sharpened pencils, the shiny posters of past presidents on the wall. I'm willing to bet that at some point, with those glossy faces staring down, you were asked to memorize the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. Now, open your eyes. On the count of 3, I want you to repeat those first 3 words. 1, 2, 3. We the people. We grow up memorizing these words. We stand for the pledge to the flag. We celebrate past statesmen, honor fallen soldiers, and we set aside a day of national Thanksgiving every year. These words, symbols, and holidays are meant to help us attach ourselves to the nation. In America, this form of national attachment involves beliefs, like in freedom and democracy, rituals, like celebrating the 4th of July and presidential inaugurations, and principles, like federalism and separation of powers. Now, this system is so powerful and so distinct that social scientists like me have a name for it. We call it a civil religion. It's civil in the sense that it pertains to the state, and it's a religion because, like all totalizing belief systems, it binds adherents together into a single community. Theoretically, civil religion in America unites us all. And it does. Thank you very much. But seriously, there's a problem here, right? After all, most of us don't feel very civil today. Some 80% of us say we're more divided than ever. Another 7 in 10 of us say that political civility is getting worse. What's more, some 70% of us have never finished reading the other 4,540 words in the U.S. Constitution. This document, which at times has been called sacred or God-given or our civic Bible, we've never finished it. So, a unifying civil religion based around the Constitution in America today. It sounds kind of nutty, huh? Well, I don't think so at all. I think we actually have a bright future, and it's thanks in large part to the strong civil religious tradition we have in this country, and in particular, to our symbolic Constitution. We may not read the document, but most of us heed it. Let's start with what the Constitution is. It is 2 things. It's a manual for structuring government, and it's a symbol for what this country stands for. That first sense is pretty easy to grasp. It's the one we come across in Intro to American Politics. I should know. I teach it. And this Constitution breaks down the machinery of government for us to understand. The 3 branches and how they relate, the principles of federalism and separated powers, and the civil liberties that are protected by the Bill of Rights. Think of all of this like the parts of an engine. The Constitution as a manual is important because it lays out the constitutional specs, as it were. It tells us, for instance, how fast government can move, not fast. And it tells us the engine is powered by civic participation. That's the first sense of the Constitution as manual, as a document. But if you watched the 2016 DNC, you saw Gold Star Father Khizr Khan reach into his pocket and take out his own worn copy of the Constitution and offer it to Donald Trump. You know that there's a second meaning. It's not just a blueprint for governance. It's a powerful symbol, both moral and political. In fact, the closest parallel in our society is to the Bible. Now, let me explain, because that might seem a little bit weird. This parallel isn't accidental. The Puritans, who had never set up a government from scratch before, modeled their approach after the covenant tradition they found in the Bible between the Israelites and God. But with the rise of Enlightenment thought, this covenant tradition mixes with social contract theory. God falls into the background. The covenant becomes a social contract. The words and the trappings may have changed, but the symbolism and the sacredness remained. So, like the Bible, we more often invoke the Constitution in argument than read it. Like the Bible, we produce it to try to convert others to our own political points of view. And like the Bible, when we do read it, we feel authorized to interpret its meaning for ourselves. We all have opinions on the Second Amendment, on the protections of speech or religion or privacy. No lawyer or congressperson, let alone family member, over Thanksgiving, is going to convince us otherwise. That's the second sense of the Constitution, a symbol, and it's the one that most of us engage with every day. The Constitution belongs to all of us, to we the people, but politicians are the ones who wield it most often, and historically no politician wields it more forcefully than the President of the United States. Presidents are the center of our political universe. We hang on their every word. They are the ultimate cue givers. So, when the President speaks about the Constitution, the American people listen. Abraham Lincoln wanted us to preach reverence for the Constitution and the laws in the schools and seminaries. In short, he said, let it become the political religion of our nation. Ronald Reagan was similarly fond of citing the Constitution. He mentioned it often. He thought that a written Constitution marked us as special, that it protected us, you and me, the people, from potentially overbearing national government. Lincoln and Reagan are joined by virtually all other presidents. JFK and Barack Obama, Lyndon Johnson and George W. Bush. Respect for the Constitution isn't a partisan issue. And this brings us to today. We feel more divided than ever, and some of this is undoubtedly due to the heightened levels of polarization and partisanship we see in politics today, both sides seeking to demonize one another. But there is something different going on. Our president, our ultimate cue giver in politics and the Constitution, doesn't seem to get the Constitution. I'm not talking about the times he has shown us all he hasn't read the document. No, there aren't 12 articles in the Constitution, there are 7, right? But he's hardly alone in making that kind of mistake. After all, most Americans cannot name the first 5 rights protected in the Bill of Rights. That's not the issue. And the issue isn't that he didn't mention the Constitution once in his inaugural address, although he didn't. The problem is he consistently undercuts the basic freedoms that are synonymous with the Constitution. Let's look just at the First Amendment. He has said that the nation should be embarrassed to allow protesters. No, it shouldn't. It's a right guaranteed by the freedom to assemble. Democrats, liberals, Republicans, conservatives, we all enjoy that right. He has said that the press are the enemy of the people. No, they aren't. A free press is essential to a functioning democracy. Don't take my word for it. Ask the founders, who fought a war, at least in part, to make sure that you and I had access to journalism. Listen to JFK and George W. Bush, a Democrat and a Republican, who said that criticism isn't fun. But the press keep us a free nation. This shouldn't be controversial. I'm not being partisan here. I'm being honest. We aren't talking about different interpretations of constitutional minutiae, about whether the Second Amendment protects a group or individual right to guns. We are talking about basic foundational rights. Anyone who has grown up in this country or imbibed its political culture knows what I'm talking about. Someone who understands the Constitution, not someone who has read it, but someone who respects it, who heeds it, would not call the press the enemy of the people, would not advocate violence against protesters, and would not suggest that due process rights can be done away with. Our president may not get the Constitution, but that doesn't mean that we, the people, don't. Say it with me. We, the people. It's our Constitution. Our name is right there in the preamble. I'm not advocating one constitutional interpretation over another. I am not saying that one political party is right and one political party is wrong. I am saying that there are certain basic things that we all agree on. Respect for the Constitution. Some 86% of us say it's important in our daily lives. Our history is filled with times when great presidents have used the Constitution to unite us. Lincoln, Reagan, Kennedy, Democrats and Republicans. We face a challenge today. Our president knows neither the Constitution as a text nor as a moral symbol. Our president may not, but we can, because history doesn't always remember the times when average, everyday Americans stand up for the Constitution in their daily lives, who embrace it. This is a time for we, the people, to shine. Together, read the Constitution if you want. Carry a copy of it in your pocket, whether you are Kizir Khan or a Tea Party Republican who holds a Constitution study alongside your Bible study. Live out its freedoms and embrace others who do the same. Maybe that means saluting and revering the flag. Maybe it means sitting in an Occupy camp to protest economic inequality. And maybe it means respectfully and quietly kneeling during the national anthem to protest racial injustice, the freedoms of speech, of assembly, of petition. Now, I'm not saying the Constitution is perfect. It isn't. The text may be flawed in places. The manual may need to be updated from time to time. But it is still an important symbol in our civil religion. And it will stay that way if we respect it and we heed it and we force our leaders to do the same. We don't have to agree on everything. We aren't going to, but we can agree on respecting the ground rules. So, let's begin the work together. Thank you.